Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Songwriting Simplified right here on JonnyLipshamStudios.co.uk with me, Jonny Lipsham, and I smacked my finger in the first 10 seconds. Yay for me. I hope everybody is doing well and has had a good first half of their week. We are here for songwriting questions and answers. So if you have any songwriting questions about composing, arranging, music, theory, that kind of thing, if you've got those kind of questions, get them into the chat just now. And you'll need to be subscribed to do that. So if you're not a subscriber already, please hit the subscribe button, give it 5 minutes, and then the chat will be unlocked for you. So make sure you also hit the notification bell and hit all notifications. That way you don't miss anything, including videos that I put out, standalone videos, that kind of thing. I put out a range of videos on Studio One usage as well as songwriting things, that kind of stuff. So there are more videos coming over the course of the next few weeks. I've got a bunch that are queued up, ready to get uploaded. So all of that is to come, folks. So please do make sure you're subscribed. And with that said, we've got a small crowd tonight, mostly because I completely forgot to advertise. I thought I had done it and then realized about 5 minutes before, oh, heck, I forgot to advertise. So, yeah, sorry about that, that you didn't see any advertisements go out. But if you're subscribed and you've hit the notification bell, then you should automatically get a notification when I go live anyway, so it shouldn't be a problem from that point of view. But anyway, let's see who's here. We got Paul Morgan here, we got Billy Morgan, no relation, and we got Mike Johnson, and we got Kyle Dradusiak, we got Rich Cresswell, and we got Just Bob, and that's all we have so far. Thanks, guys, for coming. If we don't really grow the audience that much beyond that this evening, then it will be a short show. But otherwise, we got Bob, who is floating in and out. He says, listening, he's working on some stuff. You'll also notice in the chat that there's this little heart button as well. So if you like what I'm doing, or you like what I'm the answers I'm giving you to your questions, you can hit that and you can select any one of the icons that are there. There's a whole bunch of emojis there, and you can hit those. So have fun with that. That's a kind of a new addition to the show. I only saw that like maybe in the last week or two I noticed it. So, and I noticed I can even do it myself. So I can go, yeah, I like this, and I can just spam the hearts. I can hit the celebrations. I can say, yeah, 100% agree with that, totally. So yeah, feel free to grab whichever one you feel is most appropriate for what we're talking about. So Paul Morgan has the first question, and it's a good one actually. He says, I struggle to finish vocals. Any tips on being happy enough to say it's done? Yes, I do have tips. And some of this is to do with, I'm assuming you're talking about the recording of your vocals rather than maybe writing the melody line. So you'll maybe need to clarify which one you're talking about, whether you're talking about writing the vocal part or whether you're talking about recording it. But certainly when it comes to recording it, the best way to be able to go, is my vocal done or not, is kind of to do what I've said before about, you know, how do I know when my mix is done? And the technique I gave you for that on Sunday's show. And the same with, you can apply the same method to a whole range of different things to do with recording. Or, how do I know when my song is good? Well, the same thing applies to recording vocals. Roll your seat away, go to the back of your room, listen to the song, listen to the vocal in context with everything in the arrangement, and then listen to the performance. Is it something that grabs your attention? Does it hold your attention? Or do you find that your attention is starting to drift as you're listening? And then if that's the case, then stop at that point. Stop at that point in the song and, kind of play that little area where you're starting to lose your attention. And then you need to decide, what is it about the vocal at this point that I'm kind of giving up on it? Is it because the melody is weak? Is it because the lyric is weak? Or is it maybe because the performance just lacks something? And then you need to decide, okay, what is it that it lacks? Does it lack punch? Does it lack authority? Does it lack power? Does it lack, that sense of a dynamic performance? Or is it a case of the melody itself is the weak point? And, it doesn't matter how well you perform it, the melody just sounds lackluster, even if you're really throwing everything into the performance. And it still sounds lackluster. It could be that it's the melody itself that's not right. The other thing that it might also be, and this is more of a bigger one, you may discover in the process that as you're writing this, or rather you may have moved into the recording phase and you're recording it, you may go, you know what? Actually, maybe I'm not the person to sing this. Maybe I need to get somebody else in to sing this rather than me do it. Maybe this song is not for my voice. I've done that where I've written a song and I've assumed it's going to be for me for one of my records. And as I've listened to the recording, I've gone, you know what? I don't think I should sing this. So I've then gone and got a couple of other people to sing it. And I've ended up saying, hey, maybe this is your song. Maybe I should be writing this song for you so that you can go and record it and make a really good song out of it. And so, that's obviously a larger scale thing, but you might uncover that when you're doing your vocal performance. So those are things to bear in mind. And like I said, the best thing to do is roll away so that you are not tempted to press buttons or grab an EQ or grab a compressor and try and fix it that way. This rolling away from your desk forces you to listen to the bigger picture. That's my son just popping in the door there. Completely ignoring the fact that I've got my on-air sign on the door. But that's okay. So yeah, roll away from your desk, listen all the way through, and then listen a couple of more times until you find the spots where it's maybe there are weak points. And then you need to decide, okay, if it's weak, maybe I need to just do that bit again. Maybe I just need to record that one line again. Or try a different couple of approaches to it. Being happy with a vocal take, it never seems quite good enough. It might be that the song is just not for you. Even though you've written it, it might not be for you to sing. It might be that there is another vocalist that could do it better. And by that, I don't mean that you're a bad singer. It might just be that it suits somebody else's voice better than it does you. Like I said, I've done that where I've written something and I've been writing it, the target being one of my own records. And I've had another singer come and do a take, and I go, you know what? This song just suits you a lot better. And so I don't give away the song. I basically say, hey, you go and record this for your record. And so I still get the songwriter's royalties and all of that, but I don't get the performance royalties from it. But and they do, and that's fine. But I still get the songwriter's royalties from it. And the song doesn't necessarily make it onto my record, it goes on theirs. Or maybe this is the opportunity for you to make an album where you have other people sing your songs. And you have some guest artists, some guest vocalists. That's another solution, but it kind of depends. But like I said, rolling back, listening and being critical. And if you find that it doesn't matter how hard you work and how many takes you do, it still isn't improving, then you either need to look at the song itself, the melody itself, maybe look at what key it's in. It might be that the key is wrong. Experiment with that. Try putting it in a different key. Try adjusting the melody to make it fit you better, and sing it with a bit more conviction and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then try changing something else, or get somebody in, get another vocalist in to give it a shot And then you can at least decide whether you like that idea or you hate that idea. It's definitely an option to look into, I would say. But good question. I like that question. Dave from Pops and Y is here. He says, man, the clock is slow. Hello, folks. Well, I'm glad you're here, Dave. Welcome. And we've also got Simog as well. And he says, to use DDP thing, just fill the info writing and put a picture, so done or more aspects to be done. Which format for covers, please? Kind of not really sure what you're talking about there. I guess you're talking about the project page, which is, again, that's more of a Sunday Night Live question rather than this one. This show is more to do with songwriting and arranging and composing and those kind of things, and music theory and that kind of thing, not necessarily to do with Studio One technical questions. But when you're doing the DDP file, yes, enter as much or as little information as you want. Certainly the artist name, the album, the art cover, all of that stuff can go in the DDP. Absolutely. Especially if you're exporting it to another, maybe not a mastering engineer, but to somewhere that does duplication and distribution, that kind of thing. Yes, you want to fill out all that information in the metadata. And Dave says, not everyone can sing with aggression. It never works, but pitch the tune to someone who may be interested. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes just somebody else's attitude, somebody else's voice can make a song really, really come alive. If you listen to the first Steely Dan record, some of the lead vocals on that record are done by David Palmer. The reason why they had David Palmer in the band at that time was because Donald really didn't want to be the front guy. He didn't want to be the lead singer. He wasn't really that confident at being, the front man, the leader. He was happy kind of doing backups and that kind of thing. But when they were writing the songs, when Donald Fagen and Walter Becker were writing the songs, and they had David singing them, it's not that David was a bad singer. It's just that his voice was maybe a little bit too smooth, a little bit too silky, and didn't have the kind of grit and attitude that Walter and Donald's songs require. So in the end, they ended up letting David go, and Donald said, I'll do the vocals. So he did the vocals, and hey presto, the Steely Dan sound was born. And a lot of those songs went on to become, multi-platinum hits. So that can really, truly be the difference. A different vocalist can make all the difference, give you a different attitude to, and a different kind of grit to the vocal can make the difference between your song being really good and your song being epic. I've seen this in action myself, not with me as the songwriter, but with me as producer, where I've been working with an artist who very passionately believes that they should sing all of their own songs. And we were working on their record, and the song that we were working on was really, really good. It was a terrific song. The arrangement was good, the melody was good, everything about the song was really good. But the vocal was just a little weak. And it wasn't that she wasn't singing the right notes, and it wasn't that she was not in tune or anything like that. She was perfectly in tune. She hit all the correct notes. The phrasing was great. It just didn't suit her voice. But as I was listening to the playbacks, it dawned upon me exactly which singers should be singing this tune. And so I had to sell that idea to the singer, who was very passionate about, I write songs for me, for my voice. Little did she know that she was actually not writing songs for her voice. I said, this person that we both know would be ideal for singing on this. and she will make your song go from great to epic. And she at first didn't believe me. She wasn't convinced. But the more she listened to the playback more honestly, the more she started going, you know what? Yeah, the vocal isn't quite what I'm expecting. So I said, well, let's get this lassie in. And I'm very confident she will nail it. She said, let's give it a try. So I gave her a phone call, and within an hour and a half, she was at the studio. And we played the song for her, and she very, very quickly learned it. She went into the vocal booth. After about 20 minutes of listening to the song, she went into the vocal booth, and she nailed it, first take. We did a second take for reserve, and also the fact that we could just use it for doubles where we needed to throughout the song for production. And it was perfect. It was exactly what the song needed, and it lifted the song from great to epic. And the lassie that was the songwriter went, you were absolutely right. So that's kind of the difference I'm talking about. This is where you have to put the producer hat on rather than the songwriter hat. It's a different hat. It's a different responsibility. And it's a different way of listening to the song. And so that was an occasion where it really worked. And that song did go on to be very successful. And it actually transformed the songwriter's career, because she suddenly realized, I can write for other singers. I can write for other artists. And so she didn't just write for her own records. She wrote for a bunch of other artists who went on to have, successes, chart successes with her songs. And she wouldn't have done that if we hadn't made that decision in the studio recording this record of hers. It wasn't her first record. I think it was about her second or third. And, that one song off of that record did tremendously well. And, we pitched it as the single. It did really, really well. And, but it totally changed how she thought about herself as a songwriter, because now she realized, hey, I don't just write for me. I write for other artists as well. And she learned over time after that to discern when this song was for her or when this song was for somebody else, and totally transformed her career as a songwriter. And she's really successful now, and we don't really talk to each other anymore, because she's working with another really successful producer in Nashville. So she's over in the United States now. She's not even in Scotland anymore. So she's like totally flying high, writing songs for Nashville songwriters, for Nashville vocalists and that kind of thing. But that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't made that choice in the studio. It totally revolutionized her in ways I never imagined, actually, and neither did she, but it totally lifted her. Let's see. Yeah, Tony says, thank God Donald Fagen changed his mind. Definitely. Totally agree. And Christina is here. By the way, folks, I say Christina is here. I mean that in two different ways. She's here in the chat, but she's also here in the house. She has been here for a few days now, and it's been fantastic having her here. She's away back to Denmark tomorrow morning, very, very early in the morning. So we've been having a very pleasant evening with fish and chips from our local chip shop. It's been really, really nice. And she's had both of her daughters here as well, who are absolutely delightful, and they are a credit to Christina. Absolutely, 100%. They are outstanding young ladies, totally. And it's been an absolute pleasure having them here. I could say that 1,000 times over. It's been an absolute pleasure having them here. So yeah, so she's here, and she's actually here as well. And she was on the show on Sunday as well. So for those of you that have not seen the Sunday show, Christina was actually in this room, sat next to me on the show as well, which was great having her here. And she also got to see a little bit of this side of the camera and how I actually do things. So it was fun. It was very, very fun. Someone says, only standard things or experimental, totally fine to be tried with enough rules cared. Sure. I'm not really sure what you're talking about. I'm really, really sorry. Something is getting lost in translation there, I'm sure. But I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, back Donald and Do It Again, Wheels Turn Right. Yeah. Yes, that's a great song, actually. Do It Again was a massive hit from that first record. Let's see. Oh, you mean experimental songs in your perspective? Yeah, you can be experimental for sure. I don't know why. I don't see why not. Brett Muller says, I struggle immensely with writing lyrics, especially with economy of language. Any tips beyond the rhyming dictionary? Now, don't knock the rhyming dictionary. The rhyming dictionary is really, really useful. It really is. But alongside the rhyming dictionary, which I believe to be an essential tool for any songwriter, a thesaurus is a really essential tool, because that's going to give you other options for words that mean the same thing. So synonyms are very, very useful. So especially if you're looking for rhymes, and with rhymes, don't always go for the strict rhyme, you know, the absolute rhyme. Look for near rhymes. Look for assonance. What is assonance? That's, you know, I've mentioned this strange word before. What is it? Well, it's words that sound the same as each other. They may not actually mean the same. They may not actually rhyme, but they sound the same. Okay, so it's about how the words sound. Rap artists do this all the time, and they do it almost instinctively. It's not just about the rhyme, it's about the sound of the word, and making the same sound with different words in a chain is something that rap artists do all the time. And synonyms will help you to some degree with that. But yeah, the rhyming dictionary, I think, is an essential tool to help you find words that rhyme. Also, experiment with non-rhyming. You don't have to rhyme. There's no rule that says modern songs must rhyme. You must have rhyming couplets like Shakespeare. No, you don't. Right? Shakespearean couplets, rhyming couplets are great. A lot of songs use them. A lot of great songs don't. You don't always have to rhyme in your lyrics. Another lyric technique is something that that is referred to as scattergun technique. This is where, instead of describing an exact scenario in your lyrics, particularly if you're a kind of narrative songwriter, you write songs that are stories. So if you're telling a story, instead of describing it in great detail, maybe try this scattergun approach, which is where you are taking a story and you're distilling it down to the smallest parts imaginable, as if it's like a little snapshot. So, you know, try making your lines just 3 words long. Work out how you're going to describe this in 3 words. So you're going to describe like a car driving by really fast in the dark when there's, you know, it's either raining or it has been raining or there's fog or something like that. You're trying to create this atmosphere. Try and say all of that with as few words as possible. So there are words that you can leave out. Words like and, for example. You don't need that word all the time. You only need it if you're writing prose. But most of the time, we're not writing prose when we're writing lyrics. So you can lose joining words like and. Okay? So try and distill what you're trying to say into as few words as you can. That's what you're talking about there with economy of language. You're finding that difficult to do. And it is a challenge. You have to find a way to say something that you would say in 3 sentences summarize it down into 3 words. So you might say car fast moonlit mist or something. That's 4 words, but that's okay. That describes what you're saying. What you're saying is the car goes fast in the moonlight, the darkness, the misty darkness or something like that. Fast car in misty darkness or something like that, which is 4 words again. But if you can make it smaller than that, take out the in. The in is a joining word. Do we need it? Not necessarily. You could say fast car, misty darkness, and that has summed up your 15-word sentence to describe the scenario in 3 words or 4 words. Fast car, misty darkness. Right there, you've got 4 words instead of 15. So take out joining words. And then, don't go for the obvious rhyme. Try and find if you're going to rhyme, try and find a rhyme that is a little less obvious. Because, on the one hand, your listener will be expecting a certain rhyme, because this is how the mind works and the human ear works when we're listening to a song that closely. But maybe deceive the listener a little bit. You're allowed to do that. Set them up to expect a particular rhyme and then either miss it out or bring the rhyme later. Delay the rhyme to the middle of the next line rather than at the end. You don't have to rhyme at the end of sentences or at the end of couplets. You can rhyme in the middle if you want. And those are just as acceptable as rhyming at the end of every other line or not rhyming, Maybe have non-rhyming verses and then rhyming choruses. So the chorus has a very obvious rhyme, but the verse doesn't. Because what that will do is when you get to the chorus will have a meter, a set rhythm to the words, right? So you want to do that. You want to have like a bit more of a pulse, a bit more of a meter to the words. So even if you're speaking the words rather than singing, they've got a definite rhythm, and you could almost rap the chorus. You know what I mean? Do that. And then for your verse, contrast. Contrast is always king when you're writing lyrics. Go for a different style. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to have a different style for your verse, a different style for your chorus. Maybe your verse kind of is a little bit more pouring out the narrative, setting the scene. And then your verse is short and clipped and more of that scattergun approach. You can do that. Draw your listener in, set them up for the punchline, delay the punchline, stretch out that tension before you hit them with the punchline. So I'm hoping, Brett, that some of those ideas will help you. I just wasn't looking for a cookie cutter answer. Well, right here, you don't get cookie cutter answers. And certainly when I'm doing support tickets in Personas Tech Support, when I do Notion Tech Support, I never give cookie cutter answers. So if you have a Notion question and you submit a Notion ticket, I'm going to be the one that gets it, just so you know. I don't do cookie cutter answers. I just don't. Even if there is one, I don't do that. Let's see. Eminem is great at making things flow without always rhyming, but as Carl said, manipulation of syllables. Yes, syllables, assonance, sound-alike words. That's what assonance is. Sound-alike words. Those are definitely key things that Eminem has. He is very, very skilled at songwriting. I love the way, rap is not my thing. It just isn't. But a lot of really, really, really good rap artists, they write fantastic lyrics. They write fantastic stories. Eminem is a great storyteller. And yet there's some profanity in his lyrics. There's some unsavory subjects, there's some unsavory language. But you know what? His songs are filled with humor. There's a lot of humor in his songs. And there's a lot of very clever wordplay. So if you want to learn about lyric writing, there are 3 songwriters I can recommend the highest. Eminem is one. Paul Simon is another one. And my third one is Stevie Wonder. And I'm going to add a 4th, actually. We'll have Sting for my 4th one. Because Sting, he has an English degree. He did a degree in English literature. So he really knows literature, which is why his lyrics are so rich. So poetic. But yeah, those really are my 4 top lyric writers of the last 50 or 60 years. But again, if you want to kind of look at more classical songwriting, then you can look no further than Rodgers and Hammerstein. Let's see who else. Lorenz and Hart. George Nada Gershwin, Irving Berlin, all those great songwriters from the 20s and 30s. They actually write really good lyrics as well. Okay, the language may be to us nearly 100 years later a little bit archaic, but there's a lot you can take away from it to make it applicable to the 21st century for sure. Lionel Richie's another good songwriter. He tells really good stories as well. And Billy Morgan has immediately started thinking of Fid. Thanks for that. That does not really help me. I'm kidding. Just Bob says, Iron Maiden uses lack of rhyme and rhyming words in the middle of a sentence. Yes, not always at the end. They use imagery over point-by-point storytelling. Yeah, imagery is really important, especially in that genre that Iron Maiden are in. That heavy metal, heavy rock kind of genre. Imagery is everything because, it's more about, getting the listener to imagine the picture, imagine the scene. And that helps tell the story of their songs. So yeah, image is definitely the thing. And so yeah, internal rhyming versus end of couplet rhyming, non-rhyming as well. All of those things can contrast. Joni Mitchell is a great lyric writer as well. Neil Peart from Rush, I think his band was. I would argue that Neil Peart was a better songwriter than he was a drummer, and he was a pretty good drummer. But I would argue he was a much better songwriter than drummer, for sure. His songs are really, really well crafted. And, at first people don't realize that the songs are written by the drummer. And yeah, there's like all the odd meter things that he did, those are a little bit more obvious that they're written by a drummer, but a lot of his songs you wouldn't guess. But yeah, he's another, or at least was another good songwriter. Cole Porter, I love Cole Porter. Anything Goes is a terrifically well-written song. Yeah, it's for a musical. I'm not a big fan of musicals, but Cole Porter's musicals and the Gershwin Brothers musicals are pretty darn good. Rodgers and Hammerstein, I think they wrote a few musicals. They did things like The Sound of Music, which is maybe not my favorite of theirs, but, made a lot of money for them on Broadway and in the West End in London, so can you complain too much? But yes, if you really want to learn how to write really, really good songs, even if your music is very 21st century, very contemporary, very now, very in the moment, listen to songs from 100 years ago, from the 1920s and the 1930s, because those songs are incredibly well crafted. Simple forms, simple frameworks, AABA form, those kind of things. But the lyrics, it's the lyrics that are really good. and they don't cover necessarily completely, like, they don't cover a lot of risque stuff like we would today with ease. They don't talk a lot about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, because yes, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, well, maybe not the rock and roll part, but certainly sex and drugs were definitely happening in the 1920s and 1930s. So they're just as relevant as the art of the 21st century, where there's lots of that going on. So, there you go. Thank you, Brett. Neil wrote the lyrics. It was Alex and Kerry who wrote the music. Thank you. Appreciate that. But yeah, Neil's lyrics are superb. They're really, really good. Really well crafted songs. All right. Do we have any more questions? Because we got about 20 minutes to go. And we got 15 people here, which is kind of roundabout average. But yeah, some good comments here and some good questions. You guys are making some really, really great comments here. Name checking a whole bunch of different songwriters from different eras. Let's see what else there. Let's see. Yeah, Dave is talking about hyperbole and double entendre. Yep, double meanings. Not necessarily of the not necessarily of the sexual kind. You can have double meanings in, for anything. They don't have to be sexual or sensual. You can use words that will serve as a double meaning for anything, really. I mean, it's the beauty of the English language, is that you can do that. Not so easy in some other languages. So yeah, that's worth bearing in mind as well. Good point. Let's see who else. Sorry, I'm scratching an itch. Yes, Brett is quite correct. Cole Porter's songs were very risque. They were just written so poetically that they weren't so blatant as they are today. Definitely. And that's the beauty of the songwriting of that era, the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. Yes, there were risque lyrics. They were there. But it was done much more by suggestion than it is now, where you've got some songs which really they are just so they are so blatant about it, and there's so little left to the imagination that it's just not good. I mean, songs should be laced with different meanings so that the listener has a chance to kind of explore those different meanings and those different interpretations for themselves. They don't have it just kind of slapped in their face and say, this is the song, this is what it means. This is it. There is a place definitely for straight talking songs, but really songs should be much more about suggestion. Get the listener's mind engaged. And get them to think. Because the more you get your listener to think and get them to engage their imagination with the song and with what the words mean, the more they're going to listen to your song. They're not just going to listen to it and then go, great, I've listened to that now, goodbye. Which is definitely the modern kind of thing for consumption of music these days, is we listen to it once and we move on. That's kind of how we listen to music a lot these days. Whereas, and I think the reason that we do that is because everything is just so in your face. Everything is so blatant. Songs are very, very clear. There's nothing open to interpretation. There's nothing open to the imagination anymore. It's just smack. It's in your face. And you go, great, I know what that song's about. I know what it means. That's it. I don't need to listen to it anymore. I understand it. Whereas, if you have a song that has multiple layers of meaning, and this is where things like metaphor and hyperbole and, other literary techniques like this will help you, is that you can lace different layers of meanings into your lyrics. So, there'll be a surface meaning, there'll be a hidden meaning, or a slightly more buried meaning. And then you leave that to your listener to basically, they can dig as deep into your song as they want. And so, there is rich reward for the person that listens to your song multiple times rather than just listens to it once. Because if they listen to it once, they may, be in iTunes or something, just going through what's around. And if they happen upon your song and they listen to it all the way through, if you don't have a lot of different layers to your song, then what can happen is the listener just goes, okay, great, I've listened to that now. And they skip on to the next thing and they don't necessarily buy your song. What you want is you want your listener to not only engage with your song and listen to it, but you want them to buy the song so that they have it to own, to keep it, and that they listen to it multiple times. So there's a lot that goes with that, not just the lyric writing, not just the melody writing, but the arranging, the ear candy. We've talked about that before. And all of those key ingredients that go into your song, you want to have those tucked away so that maybe, somebody is very familiar with your song and they listen to it for maybe the 20th time and suddenly they hear something that they hadn't been aware of before. Oh, I didn't realize there was a little trumpet figure buried in that song. And then the next subsequent times, it's kind of, they hear it every single time and they go, oh, I didn't realize there was this great guitar phrase in there. And you're just letting the listener mine your song for gold. And they'll keep listening to it. And what's more, they will, when they find those little gold nuggets, they will start telling their friends about your song. Hey, I didn't realize this. Listen to this song. Listen to how this little trumpet phrase comes through, or how this little guitar phrase comes through and gives this section of the song a real lift. They'll start telling their friends about that. And then that gets them listening to your song. And then that gets them buying your song as well. Before you know it, a lot of people are buying your song. That's kind of how it works. That's what you want. Anyway. So let's go back and look at this. How can you know if you have good taste? I like a lot of odd stuff. Well, taste is a very personal thing. What I like is not going to be what you like. I like jazz music from the 1920s through to the 2020s. I like, I have a broad century of music that I actually really, really like. But within that, there are strata of the genre that I like the most that would be completely unappealing to other people. For example, I like a lot of freeform, purely improvised music. Jazz isn't necessarily completely improvised. Everyone thinks, oh, jazz is just improvised music. Yes, that's a large part of it, but it's not the sum total of the whole. There's, an agreed arrangement. There's a melody that everybody plays, and then you have some improvisation, and then you have the melody played again, kind of like in an ABA format. Melody, improvisation, melody again. That's kind of largely how a lot of modern jazz is organized. So, there's that aspect to it, but I like pure improvisation, where you walk out onto the stage, you have literally no clue what anybody is going to play. There's no set list, there's no agreed key signatures, there's no tempo, there's no style, there's no groove. All of those are preconceived ideas. We lose those and we just walk onto the stage and somebody starts playing something and then we pick up on what that person is playing. I've done a lot of that kind of group improvisation, and it is very challenging, but it's a lot of fun to do. And you would think that, hey, isn't this just going to descend into a complete cacophony of everybody just playing what they want to play? No, because when you're playing in that context, you're not just playing your own thing, you're responding to what the other members of the group are playing. So if somebody starts playing a little vamp on a G7 chord, if I'm playing the bass, then I'm going to play a G to start with, and then I'm going to work, find some notes around that G that is going to fit what's going on. You want to make sure that what you do kind of fits with what everybody else is doing, or take it in a different direction. The other guys will go with you. Done a lot of that. That's the kind of music I like. Paul Morgan's music is probably different to that, and probably the idea of group, completely unplanned and unconceived improvisation is something that you just go, no. So taste is a very personal thing. And certainly when it comes to producing records, producing songs that are going to be on a record, you have to leave those kind of personal convictions out the door. You kind of check those things at the door. And then what you're doing is you're using your sense of musical judgment to help shape a song and craft a song into becoming a masterpiece. So you are applying the same skills, but in a different way and for a different purpose. So yes, you are bringing your taste into play, but your taste serves another purpose rather than your own desires, if you understand what I mean. But that's a good point, definitely. So Tony says, so where does Lennon rank in your book as a lyric and songwriter? Yeah, I like both Lennon and McCartney's songs when they wrote songs together and songs that they wrote on their own. They both wrote great songs, and they also wrote complete naff songs. Terrible songs. Yellow Submarine being one of them. It's a terrible song. But it's incredibly catchy because you've got that chorus. We all live in a yellow submarine and all of that. So there's a lot of that song from a purely songwriting technical point of view that is very good, which is why it is a successful song. But as a song on its own, there's a lot about it that I don't like. It's very twee, and I don't like twee music. So that's kind of, again, I'm bringing my personal taste into here. But technically, from a craft point of view, Lennon and McCartney are up there with Becker and Fagan, I think, as contemporary songwriting partnerships. On a par with, George and Ira Gershwin, Rodgers and Hammerstein, and Irving Berlin and Cole Porter. They are up there in that pantheon of great songwriters, for sure. Kyle's asking how my leg is getting better. Fortunately for me, I have had a little bit of assistance with my leg from Christina, because Christina is a qualified and trained nurse, so she was able to give me some tips on how to best look after it and manage it, which has been very helpful. And she made a real difference. Definitely. She made a real difference. So on that personal note, I have an appointment with a blood specialist next Wednesday, where I'm having a whole bunch of tests done to check my blood flow, particularly to my left leg, because it's the left leg that everybody is concerned about. So, yeah, there's that happening on next Wednesday morning. And I don't know how quickly I'll get results, and I also don't know kind of how quickly the next step to take in treatment will be and what that will be. I guess I'll find out. But yeah, I don't really talk about my personal circumstances that much on this show, because really what I do on this channel is not about me, it's about you. And it's about answering your questions about, and certainly on Songwriting Simplified, this is about your songwriting, arranging, composing, and music theory questions. It's not about me, it's not about my circumstances. And you know, Sunday is about Studio One. And about recording, mixing, and mastering. It's not really about me. I try and keep me out of the equation, and you know, my desire really on this channel for all of my content is to serve you guys and give you guys tools that are going to help you make better music. That's really all it's about. But on that personal, just to be personal, just a wee bit, you know, that's what's going on. But thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, someone here says, he says, one day a person said to me, don't try to get plays, but replays. Definitely. And actually, you want to go a step beyond that. You don't just want the replays, you want the purchase, and you want the investment of the listener into your song. If they like your song, not only will they play it again and listen to it again multiple times, they will talk about your song to people that they know and people that they love, their friends, their family. And that will get plays from them, and hopefully replays from them as well. So, you know, if you get one person invested in your music, potentially you can get another 100 people invested in your music. At least another 30 invested in your music. And that's 31 people that potentially can buy your song, and you can start making a living out of it. So, you know, this is why I don't talk very much about things like Spotify. Why? Because Spotify doesn't really pay out very much for your songs, for plays on your song. In order to make a living from the royalty money that you get from Spotify, you have to get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of plays. So yes, you want the plays, but you also want the replays, because the replays will multiply. But you have to do a heck of a lot before you get anything like a decent chunk of change. I think, you know, it's something like 1 million plays just to get $1. Is that really worth investing in? Probably not. So find a platform that has got a much better payout ratio, like Bandcamp. Although they do take a cut, they obviously have to in order to remain in business. They're going to take a cut because they have to, if they want to keep their business going and keep their business model afloat. You know, you're basically putting your music on their website, and so it costs money to host your music like that. So of course they will need to take a cut, and you're not going to find another distributor anywhere that's not going to take a cut. So yeah, so find a place that doesn't, you know, give you like 0.0000003 cents per play. No, avoid them like the plague, because actually you will get that tiny little breadcrumb. They will get the whole flipping fish supper. They will get the whole massive piece of beer battered cod and chips. They will get all of that. You'll just get a little bit of the breadcrumbs and a little bit of the vinegar at the bottom of the chip box that gets thrown in the bin. That's what you get. Is that really worth investing in? No, it's not. So find somewhere that allows you to have at least part of the portion of fish and chips. I'm using an analogy here, obviously, and it is a food analogy. Sorry, Kyle and people who were talking food earlier, but yeah, it kind of works. You know, you want to find somebody that will allow you to have a better share of the money. Let's go see what we've got. Spotify plays 0.03 per stream. Yeah, exactly. Good luck. Rich Cresswell says 500,000 plays equals roughly $2,000, not minus the take. You get very little of that. Yeah, exactly. Mike says that sucks because I love fish and chips. Yeah, me too. And I just had fish and chips tonight, which I guess is why it's on my mind. But sure, find a better platform where you can distribute your music well and you can get a decent chunk of change out of it. There are platforms out there that do that. Spotify, sorry, people that want to advertise Spotify or whatever. But no, that's not the platform for me, and it's not a platform I would recommend either. So find something that's better. And with that, folks, we have reached the end of the show pretty much. Let's see. Just Bob says, I'm asking, can you, without Melodyne Pro, fix a vocal slide where the slide is off key until the end note is hit without re-recording? Can Melodyne Essentials help correct? Kind of, sort of, but you're probably better. You're probably better investing a bit more in Melodyne to get some of their more advanced things that they can do. I mean, one of the things you can do is you can see where those slides are. You know, you get kind of the blob and then you get the red kind of wavy line thing. Well, that shows the pitch drift. Well, there's a macro on, and it's not like a macro command or anything, but there's like a little macro tool that is in Melodyne Essentials where you can kind of drag the slider, and what that does is that kind of corrects the pitch drift. It takes the pitch drift and it kind of narrows it more towards the note. You can do that in Melodyne Essentials, and you may find that you get a better result through that. But I know that, you know, I think Melodyne Studio, Melodyne Professional, you can actually hand draw those bits to where you want them. Whereas in Melodyne Essentials, it's a bit more of a kind of just a slider tool for that. But it could be done, but you know what? Sometimes it's just better to recut if you can. If you can get somebody to just drop in that phrase, you know, get your vocalist back in and say, hey, I just need you to drop in this one phrase. It'll just take a couple of minutes. Do that if you can. And this is again where, even if they nail it on the first take, get your vocalist to do 2 or more other takes. Why? Because you can comp a vocal. And if you find that, yeah, I like this phrase from the first take, but that one note just isn't right, you can go look at another take and go, have they sung it better on this take, on this take? And then you find the best take of that one little note, and you comp that one little note in using the takes to layers tools, and you can fix that one little note, and of course it automatically creates the crossfades. You don't have to think about that. So that's why I recommend don't just do one take, even if the take is absolutely, you know, you think, wow, they have nailed that. Get them immediately, having nailed that, to do a second take or a third take. Even just do it on loop record and let takes to layers do its thing, so that they are immediately going back round that song. And you know, that way you've got options. You can comp in something that's better from one take to another, and that includes maybe just one word. So that would be a good way to do it. Antonio also says, RIP Sinead O'Connor, who died today at the age of 56. Yes, that is very sad news. She wrote some absolutely belting songs. I didn't necessarily like the way she sang, but you know what? She wrote some really great songs, and Nothing Compares to You was a song that Prince wrote for her. And she had a massive, massive monster hit with that. And actually, for as much as I don't like her voice, her performance on Nothing Compares to You was outstanding. It was really good. But it wasn't just the vocal that makes that song. It was the arrangement that makes that song. And the melody. you know, she really maximizes those blue notes, and they sound out of tune, but they're not. They're just kind of in that slot where a blue note fits. It's neither out of tune nor perfectly in tune. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. It's a little bit microtonal, but it really evokes the emotion of the lyrics. Definitely that was probably the best thing I think I ever heard her do. But she was quite the force to be reckoned with as a personality, I would say too. So yes, R.I.P. Sinead O'Connor, and of course Prince as well. Prince was a genius, frankly. All right, so with that, we are definitely at the end of the show. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. You guys are awesome. Your questions were really, really great. And yeah, I'll see you on Sunday for Sunday Night Live. We'll be back right here. If you've got a question ahead of the show about Studio One that you would have liked to ask tonight, but it's not really the right show, then go to the bottom. Look at the bottom there. See www.jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk. Type that into your browser URL. Go to my website. Hit Contact Us. Fill out the form. Drop your question in there, and I will get that as an email. And especially if it's a wee bit more of a long form question than what you can get into the chat box, then please do that. And that would be great. And I will read your question out first. We will start the show with email questions every show. All right. So if you're up for that, that would be great. I will see you all on Sunday. Have a great rest of your week. Good night, everybody.